So are these all predominantly like in the rut?
Yeah, I was strictly hunting and calling. Every one of them was called in.
So what's that like? I mean, from your perspective, just
There's-
first time you ever did it,
It is
calling and one screams.
the most insane thing you've ever done in
I
your
can
life.
only imagine.
It's
Oh man,
the
that's awesome.
the first elk that I ever shot at, and it was when we first started kind of getting into calling them and hunting them with a bow and that kind of stuff. I had a client who had turned into a really good friend, and we still hunt together to this day, that was very well versed in hunting elk. And I said, well, we got elk here, we just, we're not real good at hunting them, He said, well, I'll come up and I'll call for you and we'll call them in. Okay. Sounded like it'd be really simple. So I had a tag. I was the only person that had a tag that particular year. We go in, we find this really big bull. And he was a toad. I'll get to it later. We watch him all afternoon, and he's across the fence from where we can hunt. But we come back the next morning, and he's now on the property that we can hunt. So we get in on him, we get above him. He's got 15 or 20 cows and 4 or 5 satellite bulls, just giving him a hard time. And he finally runs all the satellite bulls off, and he gets his cows bedded down in a nice little patch of what we call pea pines, just little pine trees. Well, the wind was bad for us to come in like we were, so we make this big loop for 1.5 miles all the way around him, get down on the right side of him. And Chris says, okay, look, he ought to be right below, down in that valley right there. I'm going to sit here and call. You go up there about 100 yards, finding an opening and set up right there. I'm like, okay, cool. So I sneak up about 100 yards, and I find this little opening in these pea pines. And I'm trying to get ready, and Chris calls. And as soon as he calls, this bull bugles and stands up, and he's only like 75 yards in front of me.
Oh, gosh.
Instead of 200 yards in front of me. And he stands up, bugles, and I look up, and he's looking right in my direction. So I just kneel down real slowly, and I'm kind of pushed into a pea pine. Well, the bull, he looks to my direction for about 10 seconds, and then he just takes off running right straight at me. Well, and he's not running to me, he's running to Chris.
Yeah.
Well, he runs, and he literally, when he slams on the brakes, he is from me to John, which is what, 6 feet?
Someone call that 2 yards.
2 yards.
You haven't drawn back at all. Or...
I'm sitting there like this.
Oh.
I mean, I got my
Just
bow in
take
front
a
of me.
broadhead and poke him with it at that
And
point. Like,
he's so close that in order to see his head, I'm looking up right at the top of my hat, and I can't move. And all I can think is this is going to end badly. And of course, worst case scenario, I'm thinking he's going to stomp me, and he's going to stomp me and gore me and door me and kill me. And like, what am I going to do? I just don't do anything. Just sit here. So I sit there, and Chris would cow call.
And Chris can't see.
Chris can't see me.
Okay. Nor can
all
he
he can see, he can see the bull's antlers.
Okay.
And he can see the bull's antlers, and he's sitting there thinking, why ain't Tony shooting him? Why ain't Tony shooting him? So the bull stands there. Chris cow calls. The bull starts bugling. And I don't know if you ever get a chance, watch bull elk bugle. Most of TV shows, they always want to show the front half of the elk as he bugles for whatever reason. You really need to pay attention to what happens behind his shoulders if you're standing 6 feet from him. Because they tend to get a little excited when they bugle.
Come on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So you're sitting there on your knees. There's a 800 to 1,000 pound animal 6 feet away. He's bugling, and the moisture that's hitting your face, you hope, is spit. Because if it's not, it's something else.
He's just out there living his best life.
He is having a good time. And
you're in the trenches.
I am. I'm right there in the shooting lane, shall we say. So this goes on for like 3 or 4 bugles. Chris would would cow call, the elk would bugle. And finally, after like, I don't know, it's been 2 or 3 minutes, he happens to look down, and he does one of those. He looks down, and he sees me, but it's one of those, what is that? And he actually, everyone who's ever owned a Labrador dog has seen this look, that where he kind of cocks his head sideways and goes, what is that?
Yeah.
The elk actually, he did the same thing. He kind of cocked his head sideways and looked at me and went, what is that? Oh, I don't know what it is, but I don't like it. So he turns and he runs, and he goes sideways, and I get what looked like a pretty good shot at him. And I'm thinking he's 35 yards. And I shot him for 35, and he was only like 22.
Oh, man.
So I cut this big furrow of hair right off the top of his back, and he runs off, and that was the extent of my great shooting on the very first elk that I ever got a chance to shoot at.
But you're hooked. At this
I'm
point.
hooked.
Yeah.
By that, you can't get hooked or
Yeah.
not hooked
Yeah.
by that. A friend of mine killed that same bull. His wife killed that same bull the next year, and he scored 405.
Really?
Jeez.
Yeah, he was a toad.
Did you like at least get some sort of trinket, like the
I
hoof, or like?
Yeah, he got a money shot.
I got nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd already had the money shot.